You're fired.
Bullshit.
Alright everyone, it's time to talk about the Democratic Party. People have been pointing out it looks like they've got no leadership, they've got no platform, they've got some systemic problems going on, but it's part of a larger struggle within the Democratic Party, really, which is neoliberalism has so fallen out of favor that the Democrats at this point I don't think quite realize they're no longer the cool party. Back in the 90s, they sort of branded themselves as that, oh, Bubba Bill, oh, he plays saxophone, wow, it's so cool. And he knows what marijuana smells like, but he didn't inhale. Oh, trust us, all you evangelicals out there in the South, please vote for Bubba Bill.
When I was in England, I experimented with marijuana a time or two, and I didn't like it, and didn't inhale, and never tried it again.
And that was sort of the way that it was. They branded themselves as the cool party, the hip party, the MTV party, basically. What they don't realize is MTV is no longer cool. It's no longer novel to smoke marijuana. All of the things that they branded themselves on, oh, our candidate's younger, whatever, are no longer cool. Even Obama sort of had this problem.
All-Star game. You don't play baseball, but you took good aim. And now I'm wondering, how could this be? I'm shocked to see Obama in mom jeans. Yeah. Mr. President, do you think that your money was well spent? It looks to me just like you didn't care. You went to ladies' wear and picked up some mom jeans.
Obama ran the first time around. He was seen as kind of cool because, you know, he wasn't white, for one thing, and there were people that voted for him because of that. They shouldn't have. They should have been looking at his platform. I did, and I, in all honesty, did vote for him in 2008. Not because he was fucking black. It didn't even matter. I just thought McCain was more alarming with his bomb Iran crap. Of course, I learned my lesson. 2012, I realized neither Romney nor Obama was worth voting for and went for Ron Paul. People sometimes, they think I voted for Obama twice. I didn't. No, that would have been a severe move right there. Romney was no better. I mean, in all honesty, it was the same thing. But you look at the Democrats in 2012, and they weren't really cool anymore. All of the sort of internet upstart cool kids, the tech literate fronts of the millennials and what is now becoming Generation Z, kept supporting like Ron Paul or saying, you know, fuck this shit, these people are the same thing, and making jokes at both Romney and Obama's expense at the time. I can remember this. It was great fun. There were a lot of people, probably tens of thousands of them, on any given significant site, rigging polls in favor of Ron Paul throughout the Republican primaries, just stirring up shit and discord, and generally reaming, you know, everyone who was involved. This time around, the Republicans managed to get a candidate who is meme-worthy enough to sort of appeal to this crowd. But here's the Democrats' problem. It's not just that image problem. It's the fact that the Democrats right now, their strategy appears to be, we're going to do nothing, we're going to develop no platform, we're simply going to tell people every day, day in and day out with our corporate buddies, Trump is evil, so you should support us instead. But they don't even realize you're as unpopular as Donald Trump is. Now, Trump, admittedly so, during the election, had the same problem he has now. When the Democrats look and say, oh, well, his ship is sinking this time because his popularity is low, they said that during the election, and the first part of that was right. No, Trump was not a popular Republican candidate. There were a large number of Republicans who did not bother to vote. But there were more Democrats that didn't bother to vote. Hillary Clinton was less popular. What Democrat can rise up right now and really lay claim to, oh, well, I'm such a stellar figure, people trust me, people love me, I'm cool and hip to the lingo? Who do they have? They're talking about wanting to run like Elizabeth Warren or Mark Cuban or something. They don't have really, it seems, any Obamas or Bill Clintons right now. You know, Bill Clinton circa the 90s. No, they're still stuck in the 90s. That's the problem. They're the MTV party. They think that if they just talk about how they've got a sensible economic plan, that somehow that's going to cause the under 30 demographic to flock to their party or something like that. That's you're living in nonsense land if you're helping run the DNC right now. The DNC is a group without any direction whatsoever. It's like Tom Perez. How often does he even come out and talk to people? Now, you'd think if they really thought that Trump was as weak as they proclaim him to be from time to time through their proxies in the media, wouldn't they come out and like bash him constantly on that token? No, instead they're wasting time right now talking about this fucking Comey issue that increasingly I think you're going to find fewer and fewer people actually care about. These folks that say, oh, he's going to get impeached over firing Comey. No, he's not. No, he's not going to get impeached over firing Comey. It's not going to happen. Watch.
Yeah. Let's get to basics. Remember that the FBI Director reports to and is under the direction of the Deputy Attorney General. That's Rosenstein. He's well respected because he's been under both Republican and Democrat administrations. He was just approved by the Senate 94-6. He said that Comey being head hurts the confidence of the public in the FBI, and he should be replaced. Now, the president wouldn't have to take the advice of Rosenstein, but obviously a president ought to have a good reason for not taking it when the guy that supervises the FBI felt that he was, Mr. Comey was bad for the morale and the confidence that the public ought to have in the FBI, and they need to rebuild that confidence.
So if Rosenstein recommended this and he was approved 94-6, most Democrats in the Senate approved him. What do you make then of Democrats now being against this? Is it just political? Is it anything that Donald Trump does they hate?
I think it gave them a chance to get back to something that they argued about a month ago, and it was losing steam, to have a special prosecutor or have a commission to look into it. There's committees of Congress, including my own committee, investigating this, and it gives them an opportunity to bring those issues up again. But sure, they really don't have a lot of credibility based upon what they said last October when Comey reopened the presidential inquiry about the emails. Yeah. So consequently, I don't think they have much credibility.
Senator, we're showing some video of you asking Mr. Comey some questions at your Senate hearing last week. I know at one point you got so frustrated you said "egad," you didn't like what he was saying, and he was not answering your questions.
On March the 6th, I wrote to you asking about the FBI's relationship with the author of the Trump-Russia dossier, Christopher Steele. Most of these questions have not been answered, so I'm going to ask them now. Prior to the Bureau launching the investigation of the alleged ties between the Trump campaign and Russia, did anyone from the FBI have interactions with Mr. Steele regarding the issue?
It's not a question that I can answer in this forum. As you know, I've briefed you privately on this, and if there's more that's necessary, then I'd be happy to do it privately.
Have you ever represented to a judge that the FBI had interaction with Mr. Steele, whether by name or not, regarding alleged ties between the Trump campaign and Russia prior to the Bureau launching its investigation of the matter?
I have to give you the same answer, Mr. Chairman.
This one I'm going to expect an answer on. Do FBI policies, just the policies, allow it to pay an outside investigator for work another source is also paying him for as well? Want me to repeat it? Do FBI policies allow it to pay an outside investigator for work that another source is also paying that investigator for?
I don't know for sure as I sit here. Possibly is my answer, but I'll get you a precise answer.
In writing?
Sure.
Okay. Did the FBI provide any payments whatsoever to Mr. Steele related to the investigation of Trump associates?
I'm back to my first, I can't answer in this forum.
Was the FBI aware that Mr. Steele reportedly paid his sources, who in turn paid their subsources to make the claim in the dossier?
Same answer, sir.
Here's one you ought to be able to answer. Is it vital to know whether or not sources have been paid in order to evaluate their credibility? And if they have been paid, doesn't that information need to be disclosed if you're relying on that information in seeking approval for investigative authority?
I think in general, yes. I think it is vital to know.
The FBI and the Justice Department have provided me material inconsistent answers in closed settings about its reported relationship with Mr. Steele. Will you commit to fully answering the questions from my March 6th and April 28th letter and providing all requested documents so that we can resolve those inconsistencies, even if in a closed session being necessary?
Because as I sit here, I don't know all the questions that are in the letters. I don't want to answer that specifically, but I commit to you to giving you all the information you need to address just that challenge, because I don't believe there's any inconsistency. I think there's a misunderstanding, but in a classified setting, I'll give you what you need.
Okay. Well, I hope to show you those inconsistencies.
No, and I think I know what where the confusion is, but I think in a classified setting, we can straighten it out.
Next question. According to a complaint filed with the Justice Department, the company that oversaw dossier's creation was also working with a former Russian intelligence operative on a pro-Russian lobbying project. At the same time, the company Fusion GPS allegedly failed to register as a foreign agent for its work to undermine the Magnitsky Act, which is a law that lets the president punish Russian officials who violate human rights. Before I sent you a letter about this, were you aware of the complaint against Fusion was acting as an unregistered agent for Russian interest?
It's not a question I can answer in this forum.
You can't answer that?
No, I can't.
Go on to something else. Last week, the FBI filed a declaration in court pursuant to Freedom of Information Act litigations. The FBI said that a grand jury issued subpoenas for Secretary Clinton's emails, yet you refused to tell this committee whether the FBI saw it or had been denied access to grand jury process from the Justice Department. So, I think a very simple question. Why does the FBI give more information to someone who files a lawsuit than to an oversight committee in the Congress? And that has happened to me several times.
I'm not sure, Senator, whether that's what happened here, but you're right. I refused to confirm in our hearings as to whether we'd used a grand jury and how. I think that's the right position because I don't know it well enough. I don't think I can tell you. I don't think I can distinguish the statements made in the FOIA case as I sit here. But, yeah.
Well, just as a matter of proposition, then, if I, Chuck Grassley, as a private citizen, file a Freedom of Information Act, and you give me more information than you'll give to Senator Chuck Grassley, how do you justify that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't.
What do you mean it's a good question? How do you justify it?
What I was going to say is a good question. I can't as I sit here.
Ye gods. Was the Clinton investigation named Operation Midyear because it needed to be finished before the Democratic National Convention? If so, why the artificial deadline? If not, why was that the name?
No, certainly not, because it had to be finished by a particular date. There's an art and a science to how we come up with code names for cases. They assure me it's done randomly. Sometimes I see ones that make me smile, so I'm not sure. But I can assure you that it was called Mid-Year Exam was the name of the case. I can assure you the name was not selected for any nefarious purpose or because of any timing on the investigation.
Last question. When was the grand jury convened? Was it before your first public statement about closing the case?
I'm still not in a position where I'm comfortable confirming whether and how we used a grand jury in an open setting. I don't know enough about what was said in the FOIA case to know whether that makes my answer silly, but I just want to be so careful about talking about grand jury matters. So I'm not going to answer that, sir.
Senator Feinstein.
I know that you and some of your colleagues from the Senate Intelligence Committee drove over to Langley, Virginia yesterday to CIA headquarters, and you were briefed. Here's the question. And you don't have to provide us with any classified information, Senator, but do you have evidence that there was in fact collusion between Trump associates and Russia during the campaign?
Not at this time.
Well, that's a pretty precise answer. I know the investigation is continuing. Senator, thanks.
And surely you know who James Comey is. It's the dude that the left hated him and the right loved him when he was investigating Hillary. Then he let Hillary go, even though she was guilty as sin. So the left started liking him and the right hated him. And then he decided to investigate her some more right before the election. And again, the left hated him and the right loved him. And then he let her go again. It just keeps going back and forth. And Comey has simultaneously united everyone at various times in hating him on both the left and the right. If you were a Trump fan, you hated him and loved him depending on the day. If you were a Clinton fan, same thing. And it's all sorts of screwed up. But Trump has fired him now. He's gone, effective immediately. And I'm going to read you something here that's very, very, very important in this document. I'm sure others will catch this as well. But you need to understand the importance of the firing here. And the left apparently is some people are already trying to cast him as a martyr. Now, these are the same people that fucking hated Comey twice during the election. Both times that he announced that there would be an investigation of Hillary Clinton. The first time around, the left said, oh, well, he shouldn't even bother investigating her. He should be investigating Trump for Russian connections. And the second time around, right before the election, they're like, oh, Comey is gunning for her. He's trying to prevent her from winning the election. And there's no evidence. Clinton never did anything wrong. The Clintons are like squeaky clean. They're like angels and babies and stuff.
Good morning. I'm here to give you an update on the FBI's investigation of Secretary Clinton. What I want to do is tell you what we're recommending. But first, let me tell you what we found. 110 emails in 52 email chains have been determined to contain classified information.
What difference at this point does it make?
8 of those chains are top secret, 36 of those chains secret, and 8 contain confidential information.
What difference at this point does it make?
Everything I did was permitted. There was no law, no regulation.
Secretary Clinton should have known that an unclassified system was no place for that conversation.
I did not email any classified material to anyone on my email.
None of these emails should have been on any kind of unclassified system, not even Gmail.
Well, first of all, nothing was marked classified.
To the contrary.
Nothing was marked classified.
There is evidence.
Nothing was marked classified.
Now let me tell you what we found.
Oh my gosh.
110 emails.
It was not the best choice.
52 email chains.
It was a mistake.
Have been determined to contain classified information.
What difference at this point does it make?
8 of those chains were top secret.
Wasn't the best choice.
36 of those chains
I said it was a mistake.
8 contained confidential information.
What difference at this point does it make?
With respect to our recommendation, this is going to be an unusual statement in at least a couple of ways. Although there is evidence, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case. I know there will be intense public debate. I know there will be intense public debate. I know there will be intense public debate. What difference at this point does it make?
Decision not to prosecute Hillary Clinton for mishandling classified information, causing a split inside the agency. An insider telling Fox News that career agents and investigators believed without exception that Mrs. Clinton should have faced charges. And then they say they were shocked when they heard these words from James Comey early July.
In looking back at our investigations into the mishandling or removal of classified information, we cannot find a case that would support bringing criminal charges on these facts. We are expressing to justice our view
that no charges are appropriate in this case.
Peter Schweizer, author of Clinton Cash and also executive producer of the documentary based on that book. And Peter, good morning to you and welcome back here. Can you match the reporting from our folks here at Fox about those who are dismayed on the inside of the FBI?
Yes. In fact, I was up in Washington, D.C. about 10 days ago doing some business and talked to people that had been in law enforcement at the federal level and also prosecutors who said the same thing. They did not know of a current FBI agent who was familiar with the case who did not think that Hillary Clinton should face legal jeopardy because of her actions in the email case.
Here's the quote. Safe to say the vast majority felt she should be prosecuted. Here's another one. Unanimous that we all thought her security clearance should have been yanked. So they hear these words from Comey and says, basically, the case is closed, Peter.
Yeah, that's the case that Comey makes. I think what a lot of agents are frustrated about is they believe in basically the old FBI, that they were going to take on whoever they needed to take on if they were powerful individuals or ordinary Americans who had violated the law. And this kind of goes to the heart of the credibility of the FBI. If they're going to have different legal standards for people in positions of authority and power like Hillary Clinton than ordinary Americans who are being prosecuted, by the way. You have the guy out in California who's taking pictures inside the submarine to show family members who's facing legal prosecution under the same statute of Hillary Clinton, sharing classified information. It's just amazing.
Yeah, and they may have been disgruntled, but they lost, Peter.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right.
Now, of course, the same people that were hopefully was going to go after Trump, even though there's never been a fucking Russian connection in the first place, all of a sudden they hate him again for the third friggin' time around. But I'm going to read this to you. Very, very important stuff. This is from the letter that Trump, White House, sort of letterhead, signed by the Don himself to James Comey. I'm not going to read the whole thing, even though it's fairly short, but this part is the important part. While I greatly appreciate you informing me on 3 separate occasions, this is important, that I am not under investigation, I nevertheless concur with the judgment of the Department of Justice, and this is the DOJ's head and deputy here that he's talking about, that you are not able to effectively lead the Bureau, and so he fires him. Apparently, these individuals recommended to Trump dismissing him. I think it probably has partially something to do with the Aberdeen crap, because apparently his testimony was flawed. I don't think Trump wants him to get perjured or something to Congress and is trying to, in a way, shield him. But here's the thing. Trump is pointing out here, Trump knew that if he fires Comey, it's going to be headline news, especially on the left, because they're all hoping that Comey will go after him on the Russian crap. So what better way to screw with the heads of the corporate media than to make sure that letter includes a little ditty that Comey doesn't care about it. Trump doesn't ultimately care about it, about not being under investigation and being told that several times. Oh, it's great. A masterful move on Trump's part. And that's probably the purpose in firing him. I don't think Trump really cares so much, because the Aberdeen stuff, while it can be a freak show in the media, does anybody really care about a few lines of flawed testimony? Is that really a truly major thing? And about the Clinton investigation, even a lot of the Republicans, they have to admit, ultimately, and I said this at the time too, Clinton is guilty as sin. She broke the law. She did so knowingly, but we can't prove that she did so knowingly. They can't prosecute. She's a presidential candidate. It would cause chaos and civil war if they were to actually try to do so. To have Hillary Clinton trying to campaign from behind prison bars would not be good for our democracy. Trump himself understands this and refused to then go after her when he was elected, despite ramping up the crowds and saying that he wanted to throw her in a jail cell. He knows better than that, too. But this is a masterstroke on Trump's part. Now, everyone reading this letter gets to hear, yes, indeed, the head of the FBI, James Comey, has told Trump he's not under investigation. There's something else there that matters. Either Comey was lying to the President of the United States, he is or was under investigation, and Trump is correct when he says that he was the target of surveillance a la Obama, in which case Obama's the one that's screwed. The Clintons of the political world are the ones that are screwed, and Trump gets off scot-free because it turns out his biggest, most conspiratorial claim was actually correct. in which case I have to venture a guess that nobody who's not a Democratic partisan or thinks he's Hitler would actually be defending those that conducted such a thing on him. Or Comey was telling the truth, and the media was probably lying through its nose because it was getting info from a bunch of people who are Democratic partisans who are feeding them false info. It makes the media look totally fucking goofy. And it means that at least a few individuals on the so-called left within our political spectrum were openly attempting to promulgate yellow journalism in order to take down a sitting presidential figure. Either way, I don't see bad things here for Trump, I realize. Some people, including those that like Trump, are acting as though this is the end of the world. It's within Trump's capability to fire the acting director of the FBI. By the way, the deputy director of the FBI is also an Obama individual. He's got ties to Terry McAuliffe, of all people, from Virginia. So, you know, it's not like he did himself a terribly huge favor as far as the FBI's own investigations would go. The person who's now the acting head of the FBI is still presumably not, you know, aboard with Trump, regardless, again, of whether he's sort of insider, acting like outsider, or a true outsider. It wouldn't even matter. Again, Trump is a lifelong elbow rubber with Democrats. And so either you have to assume that they're really, really butthurt right now, they've turned on him, or this is political theater, and it doesn't matter. The idea that this is unprecedented, especially the idea that this has something in common with Watergate, I think is the funniest of all. It doesn't matter if grand jury subpoenas were handed out. If the director of the FBI has burned all bridges with his ability to connect with the public, with the press, and everybody else under the sun, what is Trump supposed to motherfucking do? What's he supposed to do? Keep him on there for fear of looking bad? It's just a routine firing. Comey went up and gave testimony regarding Huma Abedin that was patently false. What else is supposed to be done about Comey other than fire him? Nothing. There's nothing else to do. Trump might not even be concerned with the investigation. If Trump knows that he doesn't have connections, dubious connections with Russia, why would he friggin' care if there's an investigation? It wouldn't be he was firing him to stop such a thing. It would be he was firing him for routine reasons. The next day comes out. Trump's going to meet with, I think it's a foreign minister or something of Russia, Lavrov or whatever his name is. And I saw several posts about this, and they're like, oh, well, Trump is a true egomaniac. He's totally off kilter because now he's meeting with the Russians. What, he's not supposed to conduct diplomacy? If he wasn't meeting with foreign leaders and dignitaries and ambassadors and all these people from other states, you'd say he was reluctant to fill his job qualifications, that he wasn't doing the right thing. Trump has gotten into a situation where there are those who have literally convinced himself that he's a fascist. They've convinced themselves that he's a fascist, he's Hitler, he's evil. And so anything that he can possibly do, regardless of what form it takes, if he were to take pages out of the DNC's playbook, suddenly begin pushing for universal health care and universal pre-K coverage in education and free college and like overhauls to expanded affirmative action, they'd still would hate him for it. It wouldn't matter. He could go further left than Bernie Sanders, say, okay, we're going to be like literal socialists now. I've come to the conclusion that it's best. We're going to make America great again with socialism. They wouldn't even like the idea. They'd find something to complain about. Sometimes I wonder if these individuals are corrupt so much as deluded. Some of these people, they're just so fucking far off the mark. They're so unintelligent in their analysis that they've actually convinced themselves that the President of the United States is Hitler. Now, if you actually believe in the integrity of the intelligence agencies and the Secret Service and all these other bureaus that the left supposedly loves, wouldn't you think they would prevent that from happening? And if he's so powerful, if he's so monumentally capable in all aspects of propaganda and political maneuvering, that he's able to override it anyway, then what the hell do you think an independent investigation is going to do to him? Nothing. Special prosecutor won't find diddly squat because it shows he's a fucking genius. You're not going to find shit. If Hillary Clinton who, you know, look at her campaign and then match her maneuvering with Trump's, and she's clearly at a disadvantage. If she can get off scot-free on 3 different friggin' occasions, then what hope do you have with whoever Trump himself appoints to head the FBI? Special prosecutor aside, go ahead, mount a special prosecutor. Issue all the subpoenas you want. This so-called investigation has dragged on for months and found nothing.
Does intelligence exist that can definitively answer the following question, whether there were improper contacts between the Trump campaign and Russian officials?
We did not include any evidence in our report, and I say our, that's NSA, FBI, and CIA with my office, the Director of National Intelligence, that had anything that had any reflection of collusion between members of the Trump campaign and the Russians. There was no evidence of that included in our report.
I understand that, but does it exist?
Not to my knowledge.
If it existed, it would have been in this report.
This could have unfolded or become available in the time since I left the government. At the time, we had no evidence of such collusion.
It found that Michael Flynn was corrupt, that Obama didn't like him, and he was a problematic individual. Okay, Michael Flynn's gone. He got fired too.
Let's walk through that for a second. General Flynn was a career military officer who maintained a high-level security clearance throughout his career in the military. His clearance was last reissued by the Obama administration in 2016 with full knowledge of his activities that occurred in 2015, as you point out. So the issue is, you know, he was issued a security clearance under the Obama administration in the spring of 2016. The trip and transactions that you're referring to occurred in December of 2015, from what I understand. So, obviously, there's an issue that, as you point out, the Department of Defense Inspector General is looking into. We welcome that, but all of that clearance was made by during the Obama administration, and apparently with knowledge of the trip that he took. So. That's how the process works, and I welcome the Department of Defense's IG's review. The president doesn't disclose details of meetings that he has, which in this case was an hour-long meeting, but it's true that President Obama made it known that he wasn't exactly a fan of General Flynn's, which is frankly shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone, that given that General Flynn had worked for President Obama, was an outspoken critic of President Obama's shortcomings, specifically as it related to his lack of strategy confronting ISIS and other threats around that were facing America. So the question that you have to ask yourself really is, if President Obama was truly concerned about General Flynn, why didn't he suspend General Flynn's security clearance, which they had just reapproved months earlier? Additionally, why did the Obama administration let Flynn go to Russia for a paid speaking engagement and receive a fee? I mean, there were steps that they could have taken that, if that was truly a concern, more than just a person that had bad blood.
He's out. Gorka's out. You didn't like him either. Trump is almost bending over backwards to appease people who are simply concerned about the people that Trump surrounds himself with, and he shouldn't even bother doing that, honestly, because he's never going to get brownie points from his adversaries unless it's just political theater anyway. He's never going to get brownie points from them for actually letting go of people that they pretend to be enraged by. They're not even enraged by them, even if they do dislike Trump and his policies. It's just part of it is inevitably going to be just political theater. It's hyperbole. It's the way that DC works. So no, I don't see Trump getting impeached because he fires James Comey. It's like the acting director of the FBI is still presumably anti-Trump anyway. He's going to continue with any investigation that's ongoing. He'll be fully empowered to do so.
Do you feel like you have the adequate resources for the existing investigations that the Bureau is invested in right now to follow them wherever they may lead?
Sir, if you're referring to the Russia investigation, I do. I believe we have the adequate resources to do it, and I know that we have resourced that investigation adequately.
But when Comey gives false testimony, when he pisses off the right on the Clinton issue, pisses off the left on the same issue, and is generally the whipping boy of all of D.C., how can he function? How can he carry out the duties of the job description? He can't. It was inevitable he was going to be let go of at some point. I don't think this takes Trump down. I know a lot of people want to act like it's the next Watergate. If you think that this has anything in connection with Watergate, then you don't know anything about Watergate. You probably haven't studied that period in U.S. political history. A lot of these people are weighing in, are too young to witness it themselves, so they would have had to have read about it in second-hand accounts. No, instead they just read the New York Times headline, oh, Watergate 2.0 or something like that. They assume that it's true. Well, it's not. It doesn't have anything in common with it. I would be extremely surprised if Trump suffered any repercussions for this. Could be I turn out to be wrong, but I'm going to hedge my bets on Trump escapes unscathed. Now, how would Trump get impeached? He will get impeached if and only if he pisses off his core fans. Like he swings further to the left than he already has on a few issues. Like he says, okay, I no longer believe we need a border wall. Yeah, illegal immigration is actually really good for our nation. I'm going to go back and sign the TPP and fuck redoing NAFTA. We're going to keep that intact. And by the way, I've invited the Mexican president up here with his family for a weekend of golf at Mar-a-Lago. And I'm just going to take it easy. Screw all you people. If he were to act like a total asshat and go back on everything that he said, yeah, I'd probably get him impeached. Because those are the holdouts that actually buoy him up. He would absorb like 10 centrists and jettison 100 core supporters every time if he were to do something like that. That would drop him into the 30s or 20s. That's sort of the danger zone. He's still in the mid-40s right now as far as approval. That's not nearly low enough to impeach a president. There were plenty of people who wanted to impeach Obama. I thought he should have been impeached after the NSA revelations with Snowden, because he had clearly, he was either, not doing his duties properly, didn't know what the intelligence agency was doing, and thus was a moron, or he was corrupt, he allowed it to happen, knew it was happening, and violated several constitutional amendments in so doing. By the way, I don't give Trump a free pass. Those programs are still ongoing. He's talked a big game about reforming that situation. Now it's time to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. And it's also time to let off on things like Afghanistan and Syria. People didn't elect him to be a warmonger. But to say that the firing of James Comey is going to take him down, it's nonsense in all likelihood. If anything takes him down, it would be some other form of scandal, probably related to foreign policy. It wouldn't have anything to do with Russia. The Russia stuff was spawned by the DNC to cover its ass because it got hacked. Because John Podesta was too stupid not to take a phishing link. That's why the DNC got hacked.
The FBI notified the Democratic National Committee of the Russians' intrusion into their systems in August of 2015. But the DNC turned down the FBI's offer to get the Russians out and refused the FBI access to their servers. Instead, it eventually hired a private firm in the spring of 2016. WikiLeaks began releasing the hacked DNC emails last July. It took roughly 27,000 of the 27,500 DNC emails it released were emails sent after the FBI notified the DNC of the breach. Mr. Clapper, would you agree that one of the lessons of this episode is that people should cooperate with the FBI when notified of foreign hacks instead of stonewalling?
Yes, sir. I generally think that's a very good idea.
Probably had nothing to do with Russia. And at various times you've had more honest individuals within cybersecurity fully admit this. Yeah, anyone could have done it. Of course they could have false flagged it as Russia. It would have been convenient to do so. Cause a political firestorm. Somebody could have done it as a bad joke. That's what happened. So where's the evidence? How are you going to drop impeachment against Donald Trump without any evidence? An investigation has supposedly barely begun. It hasn't concluded yet. You don't have any evidence to go on. You can't you can't charge that somebody has committed treason or espionage or something like that on zero evidence. And the threshold gets far higher when you're talking about attempting to prosecute the President of the United States. A far higher threshold there. You're going to need some pretty good proof. You're not just going to need, well, Trump said this 10 years ago. This Russian hacker said that 5 months ago. That's not going to work. It's certainly not going to convince the Republicans to vote to remove him from office. If you were to actually successfully get the votes for impeachment right now, he wouldn't be removed from office. But the Democratic Party doesn't realize it is the boring, outdated party. That's why they chose a boring, outdated candidate, and people warned them that that was not a good idea. It didn't have to be, by the way, Bernie Sanders and a massive swing towards socialism for the Democratic Party. Weren't there any other Democrats that could, some standard Democrats that could have tried to run? I understand Jim Webb, they had some opposition to that because he's not anti-gun, I guess. That was basically not anti-gun and not pro-war enough. The Democrats became the pro-war party this last time around. They think that their new slogan for the youth is, wow, we're so cool. We like war and we want higher taxes and we have sensible fiscal plans for bureaucratic spending. That's not youth appeal. That's like old, boring politics. It's like almost pre-MTV politics. It's like digging up Jimmy Carter and asking him to run. They would almost be better off running Jimmy Carter. Most of the people they're targeting don't know who he is and don't know he was already a one-term president anyway. Just put him up there. And he'll sound a little bit like maybe a more coherent Bernie Sanders.
I believe that the root of a downturn in human rights preceded 2016. It began earlier than that. And I think the reason was the disparity in income, which has been translated into the average person, good, decent, hardworking, middle-class people feeling that they are getting cheated by the government and by society. And they don't get the same element of health care. They don't get the same quality education. They don't get the same political rights, particularly after the stupid decision of the Supreme Court on Citizens United, when it said that it's an unlimited amount of money going into campaigns. But now they feel that even in politics, their choice of a candidate to be president or governor or congressman or whoever is not the same as a rich person's. And also, once that candidate gets in office, if he's successful, quite often the average person feels that they are repaying their contributions with legal bribery, and it's legal. And the justice system has also gone down. Long before we had this last election, when I left the White House, for instance, 1 out of 1,000 people were in prison. Now, 7 people out of 1,000 are in prison. 7 times as many people who are Americans are now in prison as they were just when I left the White House. So the feeling of an average person that I'll be treated fairly by the justice system is missing. So, basic human rights, income, status in society, health care, education, participation in politics, justice, the things in which we used to have complete faith now have been distorted by the rich people getting richer and the poor people getting poorer. And when the rich people get a candidate in office, they can be sure that the tax laws and everything else are going to keep them getting richer and richer, but the average person suffers. So I think that dissatisfaction with the existing system of politics resulted in the outcome of the election in 2016 in the United States. People were willing just to take a chance.
Yeah, he's massively old. What is he, like 90 now or something? Doesn't even matter. He'd still probably do better than Hillary Clinton health-wise. She was collapsing every other day. The Democrats have fallen on hard times. They've got no direction. They still, months later, they haven't really developed a strategy for fighting off Trump. Now, it's all well and good for Trump to do, things that don't ingratiate himself to the public. He does something and it's seen as dumb. He does something and it's seen as corrupt. He does something and it's seen as ineffective, and it's like, what the hell is our president doing? Yeah, that can happen, but it doesn't matter, because he can simply run against Congress in the midterms. He can say, oh, yeah, I like this person, that person, that person. He could come out and turn a switcheroo if he gets really unpopular and start saying, oh, I'd rather work with the Democrats now. Maybe I'm thinking about my party affiliation. Just totally screw with them. He has the ability to do that. They don't have any way to respond to him. The Democratic Party doesn't even, strictly speaking, have a leader right now, and it's trying to use totally outdated methods to target voters. You saw what happened with Clinton, of course. Hillary Clinton comes out and says, I'll break the glass ceiling. Oh, I have stuff in common with you. I'm rich. I'm, dynastic. I've got really weird beliefs. My daughter, who isn't even old, thinks that marijuana causes, homicides and stuff. So I'm kind of screwy and my whole fucking family's screwy. By the way, my husband's a serial pervert. But at the same time, you should vote for me because I'll break the glass ceiling. I love women's rights. That's why I shielded my husband when he was, screwing everything that moved and sexually harassing his employees as the governor of Arkansas. Please vote for me. And look at what happened with that specific demographic. Did women flock to Hillary Clinton in record numbers? No, she was even defeated in that demographic by Obama, who's male, who has a cock. That doesn't say good things about their strategies. What about minority voters? She lost, what was it, I think 4 or 5 points less she took in on the Hispanic voting groups. Then you look at Generation Z. Now, here's the real mystery for the left, and the real reason why they're in butt-fuck trouble right now. Generation Z, for the first time, is going to be going to the polls in this next election. I don't think that the oldest Generation Zers can go in the midterms. I think it's the next presidential election will be there first. Although, people that are on the margin, they're like 1 year away from Gen Z. Who cares? Same thing. Generation Z is supposedly the most conservative generation in a fiscal and certain social senses. Not in a fascism sense. The left will try to brand it as that, try to bash these kids over the head and call them bigots or something. That's bullshit. They're supposedly the most sort of reserved and conservative since World War II. And yet it's also the least white generation. Now, how do we reconcile these two things? It's quite simple. All those first and second generation immigrants that are coming over from other countries have lost respect for the left because they've begun to realize the left hasn't helped them. You're black and in the inner city, Al Sharpton's not going to help you. Hillary Clinton's not going to help you. Barack Obama didn't give a fuck about you. These people don't want to help you. They want there to be problems in your friggin' community because then they can justify more taxation and spending. They'll give you some breadcrumbs. Wonderful thing. Your community wouldn't be fucked up in the first place if not for their globalist fiscal policies. You look at the border region. There are people here, Hispanics. Who among Hispanic Americans is voting? Legal immigrants. People who are citizens, lawful residents, they're the ones that are voting, not the illegals that the left keeps talking about. Now, if I moved from some cartel-torn region in Mexico to the United States, I did so legally, I got my education, I served in the armed forces, got into a relationship, whatever the hell I was up to, and then I see that the streets around me are starting to turn into the cartel-torn city I already left, what do you think I'm going to think? I'm probably going to blame the left for that because they're the ones that want it to continue happening.
Make California great again. And only thing I have to say, this is a bunch of bull crap because I ain't having nobody spend my tax dollars for some illegals. You cannot come to my neighborhood and sell in my neighborhood and do whatever you want. Now, I don't care what none of them say because they ain't even supposed to be here. And in 10 days, we're going to find out the moment of truth. Now, as far as I live in the hood, all these, I remember Janice Hahn last time, you said they were the valedictorians. Valedictorians, the top 1%. Hey, you don't live in my hoods. I know those candy houses they got in the projects are secretly heroin houses. They sell dope. Hey, nobody had more cocaine in the 80s than the Pisces. That's the ones, the illegals from it. They was the ones that sold black folks cocaine in order to sell. I got all the goods because all me, my cousin, my family, we live amongst them, okay? Oh, and in the jails, there's 4 times as many of them as black. Every time you go along, I'm gonna tell all your stuff. On Olympic, you can go up in there and you can buy all them fake IDs. There's so much fakeness going on.
I'm just going to pause it right there real quick. I actually live in Los Angeles, and I know the area he's talking about where you can easily go and get a fake ID. He said over on Olympic, if I'm not mistaken, he's talking about this area over here by MacArthur Park. which is just a couple blocks away from Olympic Boulevard. So yeah, it's not a great part of town to go to, but there's a metro station right there, which is the underground subway system here in Los Angeles. But when you get off of the metro and you come above ground, the first place you end up is right here outside this 99-cent only store. That's the platform right there where you come up out of the subway. You immediately see all of these street vendors selling all kinds of weird things, and they will try to sell to you as you're walking past them. One of these people along the way will ask you if you need any fake IDs, and they will make one for you right then and there. And they'll use a completely made-up name for you or a stolen identity. They'll take your picture and they'll put it on a fake ID for you. They also sell stolen credit cards right there too.
I'm going to expose everything, and all these good citizens, I'm going to let you know. You're going to see about all of it. Make California great again. We're going to handle this. If you guys don't, I will. And if Mr. Trump would have lost, I'd have organized some brothers, and we put all your asses under some citizens arrest who ain't legal, and then we get some lawyers to make sure.
You know what? This is not a conversation with the audience.
Well, I'm dealing with you now because I don't like.
You are not dealing with me. Okay, you want to testify?
I'm talking.
You testify forward to the board.
You're wasting my time because I don't like your attitude anyway. I like you all right. I like your attitude, but I don't like your decisions. Your daddy was great. Your brother was a one-termer, and if you don't want yourself, you'll be a one-termer. I love Catherine Barger. I like you. But just don't be with that bull crap. And that Uncle Tom nigga there, right there, you got to go.
You are through, sir. All right, everybody, calm down. Calm down. You know people yell to get you all riled up. That's why they yell. That's all they're about. So don't play into it. Thank you, sir, for your rant. Next speaker, please.
Yes, hi. I'm glad you're here, Ridley Thomas. You probably know who I am, Candace Camper. I'm one of the homeless citizens on the Anzac property that you left homeless on the street. There's 7 of us. Okay, now I want to go to this immigration. Yes, you guys did. And you guys want to fund illegal immigrants, and you left 7 African-American people out on the street homeless with no help on the Anzac property. And I am one of the victims, and you guys have the nerve to sit up here and help illegal immigrants, and me and 7 other people and my child was kicked out of a home due to housing corruption in your district, and you are well aware of it. Okay, now, if you guys say illegal immigration is legal and you are saying this is illegal, well, guess what? If illegal immigration or undocumented isn't a crime, then why are you as citizens being unfairly charged with illegal crimes? If they can do it, so can the American people. And then they talk about fearful of their children. The American people are fearful currently now due to the Mexican cartels who are upset because they are going to be deported, and now they are attacking American families. And my son was one of them that was attacked by these Hispanic cartels. And these are the type of dangerous people you guys have in our country.
Thank you
and
for
it's
your
Americans
testimony.
first. And we will call the federal government on all of you guys to get our country back.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elsa Aldiger, and I'm here on my behalf and on the behalf of the Latino community that are here legal. As an immigrant from El Salvador, I strongly disagree that California is even considering sheltering illegal criminals that have broken the law instead of prioritizing our legal citizens. Look around on the streets. We have homeless sleeping on the streets. We have veterans without no food. We have children without proper care. Are you guys aware the California deficit went from 37 million to 300 million in just 1 year? We cannot afford to be helping illegal criminals. The use of our tax dollars to fund illegal aliens, it's prohibited by the Constitution of the United States. And I learned that when I became a citizen. Forcing the taxpayers in California to fund illegal activity is wrong. California needs to protect our legal citizens first.
Thank you. Thank
God
you
bless America.
Thank you for your testimony.
And there you have the beginning of the most monumental paradigm. You haven't seen anything yet. You think the paradigm shift that we saw in the Rust Belt in this last election was the big one. It's not. It's just the beginning. All you had to do was get populism in there in the first place. The media, which nobody fucking trusts, including a lot of Democrats anymore, is powerless. When they ramble about Trump day in and day out, smear him, they are actually digging their own graves. Because he's more popular than they are. They're helping him by doing what they're doing. You watch, long game, he wins against the media. Because the internet is continuing to gain prevalence, and the internet doesn't operate the same fucking way that CNN or Fox News operates. They're sealing their own doom. Leftist politicians, they keep casting Trump as a bigot. Oh, he wants to solve the immigration issue? He's a bigot. All they have in their arsenal is calling their opponent a bigot, without ever once putting forth a coherent plan of their own. People are going to begin noticing that. Once the Trump derangement syndrome wears off, give it another 6 months or so. Once that begins to wane, once the centrists realize, hey, we haven't gotten into a nuclear war. The country's economy hasn't collapsed. Wow, I thought that it was going to. I thought that Trump was Adolf Hitler. Oh, all the legal Hispanics haven't been lynched in the streets. Blacks haven't been re-enslaved. I thought all these things would happen. The media told me so. They're going to lose even more trust in the media. They're going to lose even more trust in the Democratic Party. And their support is going to collapse. Now, I don't see them doing well in the midterms. And if they do, they lose the next presidential election. They're doomed either way for another cycle. That's what's happening with the left. It's my prediction at this point. Because they've had months. If they had come out immediately after the election, when I said I don't see good things for them in the midterms, if they had come out, they had formulated a good platform, they had put forth 2 or 3 people that were presumably going to be the next ones to run, they'd be sort of the spiritual leaders of the Democratic Party, and they laid off the bigotry, the Trump derangement crap, and started talking about how to solve issues in the country, to formulate something they could put and compete with Trump's platform, then I would have said, yeah, maybe they'll do well. Yeah, maybe they do retake the presidency and relegate Trump to a single term. They haven't done that. They've had months. We're a quarter of the way to the next midterms and they haven't done anything. All they've done is use the court system to stonewall his attempt to temporarily ban certain classes of immigrants and refugees. Wow, what an accomplishment. They got a couple of unloved Republicans, people like John McCain, one of the cool kids. He's really hip to the millennial and the Generation Z lingo. I'm sure that he uses Snapchat religiously. I'm sure that he knows everything about computers. Hillary Clinton can't even send an email. Can John McCain? I guess we have to wait and see. Yeah, they get a couple of the really cool, 70, 80-something people in the Republican Party to help stonewall Trump, the never-Trumpers. These people are less popular than Trump, too. Far less popular. He can run against the media and Congress, go back to the Rust Belt. All you need is a mild recovery in the Rust Belt. That's literally the only thing you need to predicate Trump doing well in the next 4 years, is the Rust Belt has a mild recovery. Some of the jobs come back and some of the communities improve. Oh, yeah, watch what happens. When Generation Z begins voting, and all of these young black and Hispanic individuals who are more conservative than white baby boomers begin going to the polls, the Al Sharptons of the Democratic Party are going to have to be culled, or they will fail and fall into minor party status. They're going to leave behind Republicans versus some upstart third-party movement. The Democrats will die out entirely. They'll be where the Green Party is right now. The Greens might rise up. You might have an actual left. Could be the Libertarians. It could be basically the Republican kind of evangelical centrist model versus something further to the right. The whole nation begins to shift. But the Democrats would be sucking iron tit. They'd never win another federal election. They have, the possibility is there. They got so hoodwinked by Trump. Supposedly the weakest, most horrible, bigoted, evil orange nacho candidate. And yet he laid waste to them. Well, what do you think will happen if the next Republican candidate who comes along is far more younger and more well-spoken, much more well-received? Oh, they'll lay waste to him again. Will they ever recover? Years ago, in the wake of Obama coming forth, I said that the Republican Party had an image problem. And that was true. And I hold to that, by the way. I wasn't wrong. They fixed their image problem. They nominated Donald Trump, somebody who he tweets more often than he holds a press conference where he's involved. They fixed their problem. The Democrats are bringing up the rear right now. And they're going to keep doing it too. I don't see any significant motion in a direction of them modernizing their party or their platform. So it could keep happening. That's about all. Peace out.
Bullshit. 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 Bullshit.